George Edelman from MovieWeb. Jon, it's great to talk to you and talk
Hi,
about the
George.
film. How are
Thank
you?
you. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. So I guess one of the first things I wanted to ask about was just, you're adapting a book, but it's a true story. And what are the sort of unique challenges that come with that, and what were the compromises you had to make to kind of get it into the feature film format?
Yeah, I've done a lot of true stories actually, and it's always an interesting challenge to take a whole life story and try and fit it into one movie. In this case, the book really was very anecdotal. It told like stories that spread out over 20 years. And so, the challenge was trying to find the way in and to land on a version of of Austin that we could sort of get to know, meaning land on an age that would give us an opportunity to really get to know him as a kid. So I managed to sort of build the love story and give us a shape that brought us to him as a 13-year-old boy, and then to kind of put as much of the charm and brokenness and funny stories and heartfelt journey into that era of their life. And it really worked very nicely, and it stayed very true to the shape of what really happened in their lives.
Yeah, no, I mean that I think that definitely came across, and you picked a good time, and we get to know him through anecdotes, but we kind of ended up knowing everybody at every age throughout it, so
Yeah.
so it worked. I'm curious because House of David, and you've worked in this kind of, like you said, adapted stories, and I'm curious to know from you, what would you compare that, like, in terms of other historical epics and something you're working on and your experience with that? Do you have any specific things you would be looking at, or that you that you draw from?
In working on a period epic, you mean?
Yeah, and on the historical epic and sort of bringing that part of our past to life.
Yeah, that's been really interesting, actually. It's a good question because Unbreakable Boy is a more modern day true story, but it's a family story. And House of David is a biblical story, but also a family story. And the reason we called it House of David was because it's a story of households and of relationships, parent-child relationships, what it's like to, be the outcast of your family, to try and find your destiny, even when, you're raised in obscurity. And yet, in the midst of all of that, the things that I find myself focusing on in House of David are very similar to Unbreakable Boy, which is just like, what is it like to be a parent to a child who's struggling? What is it like to find your place within your own family? And so to take an epic sort of biblical period piece and just to figure out how to live in the moment and the truth of that moment is one of the great challenges that I really, really love about it. And I was really adamant with House of David that we not think of this as a sort of a piece of history, or a biblical epic, but to just think about it for these characters living in their own present day and then finding the stakes of those relationships for them. They don't know that they're famous historic figures, right? They're just living on a Tuesday.
So I guess you would say you try to hang your hat every time on something that's honest in a human interactive way within the story, and you're kind of looking for that.
Yeah, very much so. I'm always looking for the really human and relatable way into something, and which in some ways seems obvious, but I think some shows are more about style or more about big sweeping plot twists and things. We have that as well, but I think what grounds it for me is just the really personal connections and those emotional stakes that come from relationships you care about.
I'm kind of curious, talking off that, your take on things like, Netflix did a Mary, and you have experience that in that project specifically, being your opinion on the way other people approach this kind of thing, like taking something we know so well or we think we know well, and then deducing things about it and bringing it to life, and how others choose to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a fan of watching movies, watching television shows. So I always love that moment when you hear that somebody's made a story that you're interested in, and then I just can't wait to see how they handled it. And so when the trailers come out, I get really excited to go like, oh, that's the way. It looks so grounded, or it looks so epic, or it looks so funny. You know, um, Uh, so I'm always looking to find the versions of these stories where people did make me care about the characters. And those aren't, it seems obvious, but it's not always easy to do. And sometimes even great filmmakers can stumble in that way. They put so much effort into shooting these very big things, and sometimes it doesn't have the heart and soul. And then other times we're deeply surprised by how much we're connected to the heart and soul of characters, even if it's Noah or Moses or Jesus or Napoleon or whoever it is. So I'm just a big fan across the board of great big movies, and so yeah, I get excited about it. And for me, making it, I always try and think, what are people going to hope to see when they watch my trailer? So I'm hoping that House of David delivers in that way. And I know with Unbreakable Boy, I've gotten so much incredible feedback from people who are deeply emotional just from watching the trailer, and that always feels like a good sign.
Yeah, no, I mean it delivers a lot of what the genre you expect, and it's yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm running out of time, but appreciate your work and
Thank
taking the
you.
time to chat with us, and good luck.
Thank you, George. Great to meet you.
Likewise, John. Bye.